Just a brief introduction, guys. Thanks a lot for taking out the time. Mubariz Siddiqui. I've been practicing law since 2008. I started off working at law firms, did a lot of project finance, M&A, some litigation, and then I moved on to start my own practice in 2015. Did a own product of myself for myself, which was contract management and electronic signatures. Wukla and Paksign, these products are called. We sold primarily to banks, and since then I'm working on a couple of things of my own, but also doing some limited legal advisory. Now we're here today to talk about investment readiness. Now this is something that I have experienced by advising founders, so on the sidelines. Been a founder myself, but back in 2016 when there was no investor. So have a pretty much full bird's eye view of how things work in Pakistan and what are the aspects that you need to consider in Pakistan. Now, सबसे पहली चीज़, when you talk about venture capital, think of it as jet fuel. कि यार मैं तो एक स्पीड पे चलता जाऊंगा and this will just make me accelerate really fast, right? And that's what the point is. Now, when you talk about bridge or fuel, you're always talking about you being in point A and you wanting to be in point B, right? What that point B looks like is extremely important for you to define, and this is what will help you determine whether you, number one, two things, whether you need capital to begin with, कि यार मैं MVP बना के खुद से कर लूँ, whether how much capital you need, ठीक है, कि यार कितना रेस करना है, एंड लास्ट इज कि किस फॉर्म का कैपिटल आपको चाहिए. कैपिटल के बहुत सारे फॉर्म्स होते हैं एंड ईच फॉर्म हैज़ इट्स ओन क्या नाम है आपका अप्स एंड डाउन्स और प्रोज और कॉन्स, राइट? सो दैट विल हेल्प यू डिटर्मिन द ऑब्जेक्टिव ऑफ हाउ यू रेज कैपिटल. नाउ there are two major forms of capital. There's debt and then there is equity. Some of this stuff will be very basic for some people, it is not for some other people, but we'll go through this all and then at the end we can have a very candid discussion around किसके क्या specific सवाल हैं. डेट और इक्विटी में फ़र्क बड़ा सिंपल है. डेट नॉन डाइल्यूटिव होता है, वो आप लेते हैं, आप उस पर इंटरेस्ट ऐड करके बंदे को वापस कर देते हैं आफ्टर अ सर्टेन अमाउंट ऑफ टाइम, ठीक है? इसमें सारा रिस्क आपके सर पे है. अगर आप वो पैसा वापस नहीं कर पाए तो क्या नाम है, आप वो पैसे मतलब वो पैसे अब आपको किसी ना किसी अपना घर बेचो या तो कंपनी के एसेट्स बेचो, कंपनी बंद करो और वो पैसे वापस करो, राइट? दैट्स डेट. इक्विटी इज वेयर द कैपिटल प्रोवाइडर इज टेकिंग द रिस्क विथ यू. He's saying कि यार I'm taking a long-term bet on your business and I want a whole piece of your business. सही है ना? मुझे एक पाए आपका जो भी आप बना रहे हैं, यहाँ पे केक बना रहे हैं, उसका एक मुझे पूरा स्लाइस आप पकड़ा दें और वो हमेशा के लिए मेरा होगा. तो कल को वो बहुत बड़ा हो गया तो सही है, मेरा फ़ायदा, कल को वो कुछ भी नहीं हुआ तो it's all gone, ठीक है? So that's your essential difference between equity and debt. Remember one thing, equity is the most expensive form of capital because you're giving away a piece of your business forever. Right? So when you are raising the most expensive form of capital ever, make sure you do it from the right people, right? People that you would want to have with you forever. Now, how do you make the determination of who you should be raising capital from, right? अगर आप फ्रेंड्स एंड फैमिली लेंगे, डिफरेंट कंसिडरेशन है. प्राइवेट इक्विटी की जो कैपिटल होती है वो डिफरेंट कंसिडरेशन होती है. वेंचर कैपिटल का जो कैपिटल होता है उसकी कंप्लीटली डिफरेंट कंसिडरेशन होती है, ठीक है? हर बिजनेस वेंचर बिजनेस नहीं होता, ठीक है? हर बिजनेस में अगर वेंचर कैपिटल आ जाएगा, वो उस वेंचर कैपिटलिस्ट को आप वो रिटर्न भी नहीं दे पाएंगे. डज नॉट मीन गुड और बैड, बाय द वे. लाइक यू कुड हैव अ वेरी प्रॉफिटेबल रेस्टोरेंट एंड यू कुड बी मेकिंग अ लॉट ऑफ मनी फ्रॉम दैट रेस्टोरेंट, बट दैट्स नॉट अ वेंचर बिजनेस. Now, what is a venture business? To understand what a venture business is, you need to understand how does a venture capital fund make money. ठीक है ना? तो let's take an example. जी एक $20 million का फंड है, ठीक है? $20 million का फंड है, उसमें से फॉर एग्जाम्पल, नॉट फॉर एग्जाम्पल, 20% जो टिपिकल फंड होता है, 20% फंड मैनेजर की फ़ी होती है. सो सही है, आपने उसमें से 20% निकाल लिए तो अब कितने बचे? $16 मिलियन बच गए आपके पास. अब आपके 16 मिलियन बच गए, उसमें से आप एक और मिलियन निकाल लें एज फंड रिलेटेड एक्सपेंसेस, आपके पास 15 मिलियन बच गए. अब उस 15 मिलियन में से फॉर एग्जांपल आप करते हैं 10 इन्वेस्टमेंट्स. let's just do very basic math. 10 investments of 1.5 million each. ठीक है? Now, one thing that I'm sure you guys must have heard proverbially or like, you know, जैसे कि लोग कि most VC investments fail. ठीक है ना, ये भी बात मतलब सबको पता है क्योंकि these are highest risk investment. You're investing in the person at the earliest stage. Most of these investments are going to fail. तो आपकी 10 में से for example 8 investments fail हो जाती हैं. 80% will fail, 20% will do well. ठीक है. Now जो 20% है वो कितना बचा? $3 million बना, right? Now how much is that $3 million need to multiply by for the 20 million fund to not only the fund to be repaid, पहले 20 million, then you need the profit on top to be repaid because 10 साल में fund manager ने वापस करने होते हैं पैसे, ठीक है ना. तो $3 million है, 3 million अगर 10 से मल्टीप्लाई करो तो 30, 10 साल बाद अगर मैं 20 मिलियन लेके 30 मिलियन वापस कर रहा हूँ, मैं कोई तीर नहीं मारा है. Right, this is not a substantial amount. This is fund manager has failed. Actually, you could have just put it in some normal savings account, and the investor would have gotten more money. Now, if after 10 years I am returning, I took a $20 million fund and I'm returning $100 million, I have 5x'd the fund. At 5x, I'm a star investor. I'm a star venture capitalist. I will get the next fund very easily and all. Right now. What we're talking about essentially is that $3 million converting into $100 million. How would that happen? You invested in something, say that was valued at 100, and now that value has increased to 3 का अगर मैं उसमें करूँ तो 30x. So it has become 3,000. You came in at 100 and it has now become 3,000 within a 10-year limit. So essentially, what is the VC looking for? VC is looking to deploy capital in a company that is capable of exponentially growing enough that it would pay for all the bad bets. Okay? Now, is your business capable of doing that within a 7 to 10 year time period, whatever the VC ka fund ka ek life hoti hai? Okay, na? If your business is, a restaurant business is not capable of doing that. A chain of salons, not capable of doing that. These are all good cash generating businesses, but not capable of providing that multiple, right? What kind of businesses? Typically, what really led to VC success, and most VCs have really only made money, is in SaaS. SaaS is software as a service. मैंने एक सॉफ्टवेयर बनाया, मैंने इंटरनेट पे डाला, सब्सक्राइबर आया, उसने मुझे पैसे देके सब्सक्राइब किया, ठीक है? मेरी कॉस्ट लिटरली वही है, फ्लैट, थोड़ी सी बढ़ा लो क्लाउड सर्वर वगैरह वो करने, लेकिन चाहे उसको 1000 लोग यूज़ करें या 2 करोड़ लोग यूज़ करें, मेरी कॉस्ट वैसी की वैसी है, मेरा प्रोडक्ट वही है. सो माई मार्जिन्स आर इनसेन, right? I could end up with those 80% margins, 70% margins, where I'll be a very cash generating business. So for example, if someone invests in your company at a valuation of $10 million, right? The proverbial return of 10x comes at 100 million, provided कि उसमें और कोई dilution ना हुई हो. बट अगर आपकी कोई कंपनी में 5 मिलियन की वैल्यू पे एंटर होता है तो उसका रिटर्न बन जाता है 50 मिलियन पे 10x बन जाता है, 100 मिलियन पे उसका 20x बन जाता है जो भी इन्वेस्टर है. सो द एंट्री वैल्यूएशन मैटर्स अ बिट व्हेन यू टॉकिंग अबाउट कंपनीज दैट विल बी बिटवीन $100-200 million वर्थ, right? But when you talk about a business that would become a $1 billion business, so entry valuation does not really matter all that much. But अगर आप 5 पे आओ, 8 पे आओ, 10 पे आओ, 12 पे आओ, वो अगर $1 billion का business बन गया, you've made insane amounts of money anyway. So if your business requires capital to say get inventory, कि मैंने मुझे सिर्फ working finance या supply chain के लिए चाहिए, so what you need is actually debt. Right? That debt is cheaper for you. You will pay an interest, it will go away from your margins, but right now your objective is growth. So, but at least it will not dilute you to a certain point or not, right? To above a certain point. So, it is very, very important for you to understand what kind of capital is right for you at which stage. ठीक है? दूसरी एक और important चीज़ ये, for example, over the next 5 years, you are projecting you need $5 million. ठीक है? But you need $500,000 in the first year, $2 million in the second year, and $3 million or say $2.5 million in the third year. ठीक है? There is no point in you raising the entire $5 million upfront, because in the beginning your valuation is lower. So अगर आप for example 10 million की valuation तो आपकी initial value है, आपने उस पर पूरा का पूरा 5 million उठा लिया तो 50% of your company is diluted immediately. right? You need to stage that capital raise. So आपने शुरू में लिया, अगर आपको 5 मिलियन ही चाहिए था, शुरू में आपने 10 मिलियन पे अगर आपने $5 लाख उठाए to validate your hypothesis, to put out your MVP and see how it's running, see what you need to build. उसके बाद जो next capital आप उठाएंगे 2 million, you can still get it at 15-20 million valuation, right? That means less dilution for you. So staging the capital is also another very important consideration if you're looking to do fundraisers. So it's also stuff you really need to understand really well. By the way, guys, if you have any questions, feel free to jump in. Any questions? Nothing? Okay, cool. Okay, yeah, sure.
How do you evaluate a company?
How do you value a company? Okay, yeah, I think this is the right time to talk about it. Okay, now, how do you value anything, right? How do you value a public company? Value has a lot to do with, only beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Similarly, whoever is paying for it values it, right? Some people may think a certain pair of shoes are more expensive than they should be and not worth it. Some people would pay over the odds for it, right? That's just how value works.
They fall for the potential, actually.
Exactly. It's about, essentially it's about how you see this business in the next 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, right? Like I spoke about earlier, for a venture capitalist to make money, they would be looking at businesses that could be 50 times what they are today. A private equity, but super risky businesses. So someone with a hope and a dream, like you have a pitch deck and you have the person, the founder, and VC would be like happy to pay you money. Now, VCs typically value businesses higher at an early stage when there is nothing, for one primary reason. The main reason is that company building is hard and they want the founder to be incentivized. They want कि यार ये जो बंदा है जिसमें मैं पैसे लगा रहा हूँ, ये कल को उठ के इसको दुबई की नौकरी ज़्यादा अपीलिंग नहीं लगेगी. Okay, so the opportunity cost can't be more appealing. आपको पता है कि यार इस बंदे को अगले 4 साल में या 2 साल में he will be raising at least $40 to $50 million in capital. ठीक है? अगर $40 to $50 million ने capital में raise करना है, the company has to be valued higher. Otherwise, he will be diluted so much that he'd say, I will definitely make more money working a job somewhere, as opposed to being part of this company. You have to will a company into existence. Like business does not just come about. You really have to will it. Willing into existence क्या होता है? रोज आपने काम करना है. आधी चीज़ें बहुत boring होती हैं और आधी चीज़ें are unbearable. ठीक है ना कि यार अब जाके ये फॉर्म करना है, इस पे ये स्टैंप लगाना है, बैंक अकाउंट खोलना है, इस ख्वारी है, everything. But it's the truth. But you literally from first customer to 1,000 customer, you are every day doing whatever it takes, right? Now, nobody does that out of compulsion. कोई फोर्स करके नहीं करता कोई भी है, ठीक है? फोर्स करके आप, the whole initiative has to come from within. You can do the same thing in 6 months that you could have done in 2 weeks, right? आपके ऊपर है. आप ना खुलवाओ बैंक अकाउंट, आप ना उसमें और तेज़ी से करो, ना आप और जाके पुश करो चीज़ों को, आप 4 घंटे काम करके निकल जाओ, right? So to make sure that you have the thing coming from within is that you are incentivized for as long as possible. That's the reason why VCs, तो जब पहला मैं चेक डालूंगा, आपका ना कोई बिजनेस एग्जिस्ट करता है, ना आपके पास कोई कस्टमर है, ना आपके पास कुछ है, प्री सीड चेक की बात कर रहा हूँ, आपके पास एक पिच डेक है, आई विल गिव यू से आपको $5 लाख की ज़रूरत है, आई विल डू इट फॉर 10%. So what does that make your company? Worth $5 million. But the idea is that it's either worth zero, whether you have 50% of zero or 10% of zero or 75% of zero, it doesn't matter, right? It's still zero. Or it will be big. If it's big, then my 5 lakh can convert into 5 million, 10x हो सकते हैं within a short span of time, which is what. So venture capital is the riskiest asset class out there, क्योंकि आप बंदे पे वो कर रहे हो और सीधी सी बात है, बंदा बस के नीचे भी आ सकता है और वहाँ पे आपकी पूरी इन्वेस्टमेंट गई. Right? So many situations have happened. So the people are very risky, and there are a lot more variables in people.
There's no way taking out your investment otherwise, you know, if something.
Yeah, it's gone. So most of these startups have nothing valuable within them. Unless you have IP within it, unless you have some sort of thing that you could sell, most of these guys can't sell shit, right? In terms of an asset that you would get liquid capital for. So इसीलिए उसकी valuation शुरू में ज़्यादा होती है. Now, how should you think about valuing your business? The easiest thing to do is look for global comparables. If you're getting into venture, and I presume most of you guys want VC money, the way to get VC money or way to think about VC money is to look at कि क्या दुनिया में किसी ने इस तरह का बिजनेस किया है, नंबर 1. क्या दुनिया में इस तरह के बिजनेस में किसी VC ने पैसे डाले, नंबर 2. क्या जब पैसे डाले थे क्या वो पैसे बनाए, मतलब वापस आए या नहीं आए. These 3 things. अगर फॉर एग्जांपल इंडिया में किसी ने इसमें पैसे डाले थे एक बिजनेस में और उन्होंने उन्होंने से इंडिया में पैसे डाल के एक VC ड्रिवन बिजनेस में, एक वेंचर में $750 मिलियन की वो कंपनी बिक गई थी. यू कैन जस्ट टैबुलेट कि पाकिस्तान में वो कंपनी may not be even worth 150 million, right? Because we are not 20% of India's, neither are we in terms of VC investments, neither are we in terms of economy, etc. So I would recommend, if you're looking to start a venture play, look at similar ventures in the closest you can find. US में everything is obviously worth a lot more. The US consumer can pay more. The US investor can invest more. So all of those companies become far more valuable. पाकिस्तान में ऐसा कोई सीन नहीं है. मीना में और इन रीजन में अभी नए इन्वेस्टमेंट्स हो रही हैं, right? So that's a very important consideration. Whenever you're looking at, sorry मैं बहुत लंबा आंसर कर दिया, but whenever you're looking at valuing your business, think about global comparables. This is a simple comps की valuation. So the simple comp was कि when Udan was starting in India, in the beginning it was worth this. We are इतनी छोटी मार्केट है तो हमारी अप्रॉक्सीमेटली इतनी होनी चाहिए, राइट? और जब वो इतने नंबर्स कर रहे थे तो उनकी वैल्यूएशन ये थी, तो अगर हम उससे थोड़ा डिस्काउंट लगा के पाकिस्तान लेवल डिस्काउंट लगा लें तो हमारी ये वैल्यूएशन. सो ग्लोबल कॉम्प्स इज प्रॉब्ली द ईजिएस्ट वे यू कैन मेक सेंस. इट्स ऑल्सो द ईजिएस्ट वे एनीवन कैन ड्राइव कन्विक्शन, बिकॉज दे लाइक हाँ इस चीज़ में पैसे बने हुए हैं. पाकिस्तान को जो सबसे जो अनफॉर्चुनेट बात है वो ये है कि हमारे पास ये पूरा वेंचर और आईटी का सीन बहुत देर से आया, टेक्नोलॉजी कंपनीज का. बट जो अच्छी बात है वो ये है कि हमारे पास अब दुनिया में चीज़ें हो गई, जो चीज़ें चल गई हमें पता चल गया, जो चीज़ें नहीं चली हमें पता चल गया. नाउ वी गेट टू स्टार्ट फ्रेश. सो मोस्ट ऑफ आवर कंपनीज आर सब्सटैंशियली डी रिस्क्ड. जो भी हमारे स्टार्टअप के मॉडल्स हैं, जो भी हमारे स्टार्टअप की वो हैं, देर ऑल थोड़ा रिस्क कम है, बिकॉज आपको पता है ये चीज़ इंडिया में चली है, ये चीज़ से बांग्लादेश में चली है या मीना में ये चीज़ चल रही है.
We have been through trial and error.
Other people have, and now we can just learn from them. And but obviously there are localization requirements. There's some things that, say for example, in India, financing retailers is easier. In Pakistan, it has to be Islamic financing because a lot of retailers will just not accept any other form of financing, and people are just not used to that. So हर country के unique challenges होंगे, absolutely, but काफ़ी सारे challenges इतने unique नहीं हैं. ये चीज़ पहले भी हो चुकी है. Okay, let me move on. Yeah. Now, what is the capital for is the next question. So how much should you raise is really the question. Now, we've spoken about structuring it, but फिर भी कितना raise करना चाहिए? Now, it's typically when you talk about capital, you need to talk about risk. Risk and capital go hand in hand. ठीक है कि अगर मैं आपको अब जब बैंक डेट देता है तो टिपिकली बैंक्स पाकिस्तान में क्यों नहीं इतनी डेट होता, क्योंकि लोग बैंक्स कहते हैं हमें कोलैटरल चाहिए साथ में, हम रिस्क कुछ भी नहीं लेंगे. ठीक है, हमें पक्का इंटरेस्ट रेट चाहिए. अगर तुम्हारी कंपनी डूब गई तो हमें उसके साथ कोलैटरल चाहिए ताकि मेरे पैसे ना डूबें कभी भी. ठीक है, इक्विटी में ऐसा नहीं हो सकता, राइट? सो इक्विटी में व्हाट हाउ दे कवर रिस्क इज टू सी कि बिजनेस में व्हाट कुड किल दिस बिजनेस. सो इसमें एक बहुत अच्छा फ्रेमवर्क है which I really like is called the onion theory of risk. It's by Mark Andreessen. Mark Andreessen is A16Z, one of the best VCs in the world. So the way he says is that when a startup starts or any of these businesses start, think of them like an onion. As and when you pay onion, each layer of the onion is a risk. अब आप उसको जो भी कह लें, तो सबसे पहला रिस्क होता है आपका, आई वुड से MVP में जो आप इस्टेब्लिश कर रहे हैं, डू पीपल वांट दिस whatever you're building? Does anyone in the world, or world छोड़ें जो भी आपकी market है, does anyone in your market want this particular thing, product, service, whatever you're selling? Number one, that's the main risk. So what do? You do जो भी lean startup की आपकी methodology है, you find the fastest way to validate your hypothesis. तो मेरी hypothesis है कि यार लोग पाकिस्तान में shares लेंगे electronically, private company के. How can I test this? I can go to 10 private companies, give them कि यार अगर मैं आपको इस तरह से मैं डिज़ाइन बना लूँ खुद से Figma पे जाके सिर्फ स्क्रीन्स बना दूँ कि Figma पे जाके मैंने स्क्रीन्स बनाई और मैंने बोला if a product like this existed in which you can see your shares like this and you could transfer like this, would you buy it? Would you pay for it? That would tell me substantially, right? एक होता है scene कि where I am hypothesizing whether someone would pay for it, और एक होता है where someone actually starts paying for it. डिमांड में और मार्केट में एक चीज़, एक पुल और पुश का एक कॉन्सेप्ट है. एक पुल का कॉन्सेप्ट है कि पीपल आर डाइंग फॉर इट, राइट? इफ़ यू पुट इट आउट देयर पीपल विल पुल इट फ्रॉम योर हैंड्स एंड टेक इट. और एक होता है पुश. Again, vitamins and painkillers. Painkillers people will pull out of your hand. Vitamins you will need to sell, you will need to explain किसका आपको क्या फ़ायदा है, इससे आपको क्या होगा वगैरह वगैरह. Both kind of businesses succeed, ऐसी बात नहीं है. Nobody in the world needs an iPhone, right? It's not an absolute need at all, but they push it so well that you want it, right? And that's what one of those businesses are. So when you think about risk, there are different layers of risk that could kill your business. The easiest way to do it, the framework is कि think about what could end your business today. क्या हो सकता है? तो एक तो होता है फाउंडर रिस्क कि फाउंडर ही नहीं है या फाउंडर को कुछ हो गया. या दूसरा फिर आपका आ सकता है टेक्नोलॉजी रिस्क कि whatever you're trying to build can't be built. Now I don't think most people in Pakistan are doing those moonshot things, and they shouldn't, but say in Silicon Valley, in rest of the world, people are trying to build businesses that have never been. Then you have product risk, distribution risk. Distribution risk is you're selling ice cream in Pakistan. There are not enough cold storage chains in Pakistan to sell ice cream beyond a certain point. So your market is absolutely limited because it can't be distributed to a larger market. So it's smaller things like this. Now think of capital as a tool you will use to peel off each layer of that onion. Right? Because when you have a public company is valued very high. Why is it valued very high? And it's low risk. तभी उसके returns भी कम होते हैं, but it's low risk. Why? Because they've already have a product that people are paying for. They're already distributing it. They've already made the technology. It's not reliant on the founders anymore because now there are 100,000 people that work for this company. जो चलना था चलना, पैसे आ गए, पैसे डाल के grow हो गया, everything, right? So the concept is that as you use capital, you de-risk. So my typical framework for fundraising is that whenever you're going to the market to raise funding, think about all the risks that your business has. What kind of capital do you need to peel off those layers of risk? Simple. You don't have to present it to the investor in that sense. You don't have to speak to the investor about it like कि यार ये मेरा onion है मेरे startup का. No. But in your mind you should know, and the way you speak to an investor, you should know कि जो भी उसका एक $1 है, it is going towards de-risking your business. Simple. This is how I say you should think about how much money you need. दूसरी चीज़ होती है, one thing I find in a lot of startups, and we went through a lot of pitches and we heard this, is कि इतने पैसे रेस करने हैं. क्यों रेस करने हैं? Because this would give us runway for 2 years. Runway means nothing. If your business is not working, whether you can still exist for 2 years, 3 years, 18 months, it does not matter. Right? You can't confuse motion and progress. मैं भागता रहा हूँ मैं अपनी जगह पे खड़े होके, I'm not moving forward, I'm just moving, right? So moving forward in terms of your strategy or your objectives looks like a particular objective. राइट कि ये पैसे आएंगे, इसके बाद मैं ये टारगेट अचीव. टारगेट क्या है कि मैं क्रिटिकल मास, मैंने अपने लिए एक मेट्रिक सेट किया है कि आई कैन 1000 पीपल विल यूज इट एंड द सिस्टम वुड वर्क and 1000 people would pay for it. Now that's a good milestone. That de-risks your business to an extent. You have done product market fit, right? So that's what you need to think about, and that's how you need to think about how what you're raising capital for. ठीक है? अच्छा. So ये हमारा element हो गया. Okay. Now any questions before I get on to the holding company bit?
I have a question about the kinds of capital. So is it when you do this, sorry, can you get non-voting? Can you raise non-voting equity also at that stage, or is that wise to do so? Because you just want the cash and you give them the double up or quadruple up, 10x जब भी होता है, but you don't want them to have any say in business
Yeah, so most of these guys, okay, so there are two kinds of controls that an investor could have. One is positive control in the sense that they have a board member who is part of your decisions and strategy and stuff like that, and they tell you what to do or they have their say in it, right? Then there's negative control where they say, run the business the way you want, but if you're doing one of these 4 things or 5 things, we can veto those. Now, those 4 or 5 things are typically things which you can do to completely kick them out or be fraudulent, really. So, for example, if you could just suddenly issue more shares which dilutes them completely out, that's something, and that's fair for them to have that restrictive right. There are 2 ways you can raise equity. One is direct equity. So, मैंने आज पैसे लिए, कल मैंने उस पैसे के बदले आपको shares दे दिए. Right? Simple as that. This is
assuming that this is a private limited setup already.
Already, yeah.
So it's a private limited that's already issued, let's say, 1 million shares. And
yeah.
You're going to exchange those shares.
Yeah. So for example, you've already issued 1 million shares. Someone comes in and they say कि यार मैं 1 million और share ले रहा हूँ. ठीक है? Say not million. मैं 100,000 shares extra ले रहा हूँ. So now you have 1.1 million shares. और मैं उस 100,000 extra shares के लिए $1 million दे रहा हूँ.
वो million तो हमने लेकिन paid up वो हमारा capital होगा.
हाँ.
दोबारा raise तो नहीं.
No, you're saying कि investor, of course you can. You can keep increasing your number of shares. How does an investment work? So there are 2 ways your shares operate. One is transfer of shares. So for example, my company exists, 1 million shares, right?
और मैंने इसने company बनाई है 50% इसके पास.
So 500,000 you, 500,000 you. ठीक है? अब आपके पास जो third investor आता है, अगर आप उसको transfer करोगे shares, तो वो उन shares के बदले पैसे आपको देगा. Transfer में आपको मिलता है. आपने कंपनी में डाला. So what companies, in order, now this is called a rights issue. In order to raise capital, what company does is, company says, I am creating new shares. So now the company is saying, I have 200,000 new shares. So the total number of shares will be 1.2 million. 500 is with you, 500 is with you, and 200,000 will go to the investor.
Our issues have gone down from 50 to now.
Yeah, 50 to less. You take dilution worth 12 का to कितना होता है जो भी होता है 1/6 जो भी बनेगा आपका.
So that was my question. Is it better to raise new shares or just sell?
No, selling is not capital going into the company. No institutional investor will. So selling is you taking the capital and taking it home. Investors won't do that unless they are giving you the कि हम थोड़े से तुम्हारे भी share लेते हैं. Some founders do it later on as the company goes higher. They sell very small pieces of their equity just for some liquidity. यार गाड़ी लेनी है, घर लेना जो भी है, depending on how big your company is. So new shares would be created. What was the question again?
Non-voting.
So control related. Now, if you raise money through a safe होता है simple agreement for future equity, which basically says कि आप मुझे आज पैसे दे दो $2 lakh या $2 million, और मैं फिर आपको उसके बाद जब next round of funding होगा उसमें मैं आपको shares दे दूंगा at a valuation that is determined by that next round. Today we don't talk about valuation.
Today what's the consideration? He's given you money, what have you given?
What am I giving him? So 2 things. There's a discount or a cap. So discount होता है, cap होता है कि मैंने आपको $2 million दिए और मैं कह रहा हूँ मेरा cap है $20 million. So next round भले 40 million पे हो, मेरे $2 million convert होंगे 20 million की valuation पे, which basically means कि I get a minimum 10% for my $2 million, right? Now the question is, what if it's lower than 20 million? तो फिर इसको क्या मिला? Like you rightly asked, right? And in that case, they get a discount of say 15%, 20%. अगर 10% डिस्काउंट है तो आपका फॉर एग्जांपल नेक्स्ट राउंड हो रहा है 18 मिलियन की वैल्यूएशन पे. इनके जो $2 million हैं वो 18 पे नहीं, 18 का 10% कम करें, सो उनके उस पे कन्वर्ट होंगे. So which comes to 16.8. No, 16.2. 16.2% per million पे इनकी वैल्यूएशन में वो शेयर्स कन्वर्ट होंगे. What that means is कि इसको वो मिल गया. But essentially, forget voting. They have no share. They're not even a shareholder. They have just given you advance equity. And this is what's happening right now in terms of what's happening in Pakistan. All these early rounds, pre-seed और seed में typically लोग safe से raise करते हैं. Because it takes longer, it's a drawn out process to get a whole shareholder on board. आप उसको share issue करोगे, वो अपना director appoint करेगा. Shares जब मिल जाते हैं तो उसकी KYC requirement होती है हर jurisdiction में. We're coming there. So typically आप इन दोनों में से कोई भी instrument use करते हो, but early stage में I recommend safe because it's very quick. आपने कुछ भी नहीं करना, आपने सिर्फ एक एग्रीमेंट साइन करना है, वो एग्रीमेंट भी स्टैंडर्ड पड़ा हुआ है वाई कॉम्बिनेटर की वेबसाइट पे, एंड आपने वो साइन करके यू मूव फॉरवर्ड.
You don't have to be incorporated for that? You don't have
No, of course you have to be incorporated. It has to be a company, because what they're saying is they want give the money to a company, not to an individual.
What about a partnership?
No, it's not a limited liability entity. Limited liability entity is a separate legal entity.
It's a private limited.
Private limited company is a separate. So in the eyes of the law, it's a separate person. This person will never die till the time you go to the SECP and tell them to kill this person, or end this or wind this up. Till that time, it'll never die. People die. Right? So if you give money to a founder and the founder dies, and the founder does not have that money to repay you, that's it, you have no recourse in law. With a company, if kuch bhi ho jaye, if you've given money to a company, the company's assets at least you can acquire. So that's how it works. Essentially that's how it's structured. Now, yeah, sure.
अगर मैं एक फाउंडर हूँ और मैंने एक अर्ली स्टेज स्टार्टअप है, मेरी MVP कर ली और पायलट कर लिया, आई हैव फ्यू कस्टमर्स और मिनिमम सा रेवेन्यू जनरेट होना शुरू हो गया. नाउ आई एम लुकिंग फॉर इन्वेस्टमेंट. व्हाट आई वुड से कि मैं क्या देख रहा हूँ, मैं एंजल इन्वेस्टमेंट देख रहा हूँ, प्री सीड देख रहा हूँ, सीड देख रहा हूँ.
So angel seed, pre-seed is, by the way, terms कोई कहीं पे किसी ने पत्थर में लिखी हुई नहीं है, मतलब हर कोई अपनी तरफ से बना लेता है. कुछ लोग सीरीज़ A1 देन सीरीज़ A2 एंड देन सीरीज़ B करते हैं, कुछ लोग सीधा सीरीज़ B कर लेते हैं, A B C D इस तरह करके चल रहे होते हैं. एंजल इन्वेस्टमेंट इज़ टिपिकली व्हेन यू गेट द अर्लीस्ट चेक, जब आपने बस सोचा है एंड यू हैव समवन इन योर फ्रेंड्स और फैमिली हु सेज यार इफ यू आर डूइंग दिस बिजनेस आई हैव जस्ट कंप्लीट फेथ इन यू किलिंग इट, सो हियर यू गो $15,000 $20,000 समथिंग लाइक दिस, एंड यू कैन just start working. Seed round is when you is very close to an angel. Say you have taken couple of angels on. अक्सर लोग angel और seed को mix कर देते हैं. But you have couple of angels on. You know what you're doing. You have decided कि मैं ये करने जा रहा हूँ. You have done some sort of MVP, and you have validated. Forget validating things for the investor. Validate it for yourself, right? Your professional career would span what? 30 years. 30 साल के लिए आप कुत्तों की तरह से काम करेंगे, 35 साल के लिए काम करेंगे बहुत ज़्यादा, राइट? 30-35 years. You're going to live for what? 65-70 years. So every 3-4 years is 10%. I think every 3 years is 10% of your working career, meaningful working career. So before jumping on doing something startup, which is this is all I'm going to do, be pretty sure this is what you want to devote this very precious time and limited scarce resource that you have to this thing, right? That's more valuable than any investor's money, because वो किसी और के पैसे लेके आपको दे रहा है, उसका कुछ नहीं जा रहा, फेल हो जाएगा, उसने वैसे ही अकाउंट किया हुआ है कि 80% ऑल माई इन्वेस्टमेंट शुड फेल. वैलिडेट इट फॉर योर सेल्फ. सो सी कोई ख़रीदने को तैयार है, कोई इसके लिए पैसे देगा, इसको मैं वो ग्रो कर सकता हूँ जो मुझे लग रहा है. आई मीन आई एम नॉट सेइंग यू शुड नॉट टेक रिस्क्स, बट दिस इज़ द वैलिडेशन यू नीड फॉर योर सेल्फ. So anything across that stage, seed stage, is then you come into Series A, Series B, Series C. Yes, sir.
पहले कोई इन्वेस्टमेंट रेज नहीं की.
Yeah, you can go directly to Series A. कुछ ऐसी कंपनीज हैं जिन्होंने कोई मेल चैम्प कभी इन्वेस्टमेंट नहीं रेज की, उन्होंने सीधा जाके IPO के कर, नहीं IPO से पहले थोड़े पैसे लेके फिर IPO कर. Again, funds, before we get into, again, fund, this is how I started this conversation today. Your capital is either a bridge or jet fuel. ठीक है? You either are building a bridge from point A to point B, or you're getting fuel to explore from point A to point B. So it has to be capital is a means to an end. तो अगर आप bootstrap करके अपना business बना सकते हैं, like let me give Shan Masala, right? It's what I think it's easily worth $700-800 million at a discount. Bootstrapped entirely. Why would you not want to own entire 800 million as opposed to owning, for example, 10% of like $1 billion company, right? So you still own 100. So my point is, if you can bootstrap, but be very realistic about it. कि अगर आपको लगता है इस capital से मैं जल्दी कर लूँगा, तो जल्दी कर लें, because time value of money का एक construct है. Whether you make 100 million in 5 years or 100 million in 15 years is a completely different IRR, internal rate of return on capital, right? Or your own time.
Plus the competition may catch up as well.
Competition may catch up. You don't have those moats that you need. There's a lot of both things. Right now, I feel like half the people only want to, like as employees, join companies that have raised capital. In Pakistan, raising capital is millions of dollars of free marketing. Automatically you get validated, automatically everyone hears about your name, etc. Like my wife, who is not a tech adopter, but she heard about Airlift raising 85 million and she started downloading the app and she started ordering Airlift, right? So there's strategic things, but this can't be the only reason why you raise capital, because capital लेके आप फंस जाते हैं. You had a question.
जी मुझे पूछना था कि जो SMCs होती हैं, are they qualified for having funds?
SM सिंगल मेंबर कंपनी, हाँ, बिकॉज जैसे ही उसमें कोई और शेयर होल्डर आएगा वो प्राइवेट लिमिटेड बन जाएगी, तो आप उसको वैसे ही कन्वर्ट कर लीजिएगा. Those things are not the issue.
So you explained how to evaluate a company for a VC. So जो angel investor को deal कर रहे हैं, तब हम अपनी कंपनी को कैसे evaluate करें? Like he is investing in you, right? So he is investing in the person.
Even the VC seed stage is also investment in you.
Right.
See, at what point? Okay, give me an example. Airlift has done a Series B. I think if Usman Gul is not there, that company still suffers. Even today, it's contingent upon the founder. I think even the last round is an investment primarily in the founder and the team. But I understand. In this situation, here's how I would do it. I was like, at seed stage, this company would be 5 to 6 million. Typical इस वक्त जो seed check आ रहा है पाकिस्तान में 5 to 6 million पे आ रहा है. So if I'm raising before that, as from an angel investor, I would give them a valuation of 2 to 3.
$2 to $3 million.
Yeah.
And we'll evaluate $25,000-$30,000 on that.
Yeah. So if it's 2.5 and they're giving you 25,000, it's 1%.
Okay. And how much of a company should you dilute? Like, शुरू में कितने percent?
Yeah.
And while choosing between angel investors, like I feel that some investors can also be of contribution because वो relevant field के होते हैं.
Absolutely, वो बहुत काम आता है उससे.
So always choose that.
Yeah, देखो, if say you're doing something in ride hailing.
Relevant field के नहीं होते वो convince जल्दी हो जाते हैं.
क्योंकि उन्होंने कम देखा होता है ना उस चीज़ के बारे में. But relevant field वाले की वजह से अब if you're doing something in ride hailing or literally anything logistics related, having Mudassir Sheikha on your cap table would just, अगर मैं फील्ड का नहीं भी हूँ मैं कहूँगा अच्छा मुदस्सिर शेखा ने इन्वेस्ट किया तो तुम वैसे ही ले लो, बिकॉज आई नो उसने कुछ देख के ही किया होगा, राइट. इट जस्ट मेक्स सेंस, इट वैलिडेट्स द हाइपोथेसिस. whenever you're raising from angels, जो छोटे चेक आप उनको ये डिस्काउंट दे रहे हैं बहुत बड़ा, बिकॉज अ VC would at the same time as an angel, होता ये लोग सेफ पे कर रहे होते हैं. तो फॉर एग्जाम्पल आई विल टेक $25,000 from you at a valuation cap of 2.5 million. He's a VC. I will raise $200,000 from him at a valuation cap of 5 million. साथ साथ आ रहे हैं आप दोनों के पैसे, बट मैं आपको डिस्काउंट दे रहा हूँ. क्यों दे रहा हूँ मैं आपको डिस्काउंट? बिकॉज आई सी यू एज समवन who will also be an operator role and help me execute, because you offer that value. Now, what I would do is, when I'm giving you that discount, I would ensure that we have this conversation where we have said, "K yaar, if you could give me an hour every month, that would really help me." If you are Mudassir Sheikha and I'm doing ride hailing and stuff like that, an hour every month would save me months of mistakes. Months, literally. Because again, it's a company that you're building every day. Every day is different because human beings are not as rational or as stable as we think we are, right? एक हफ्ते लग रहा होता है कि आप यूनिकॉर्न बना रहे हैं, अगले हफ्ते लग रहा होता है कि कुछ भी नहीं कर रहे, मैं क्या करूँ अपनी ज़िंदगी के साथ, right? And that's a very normal thing for a startup founder's journey. The good thing is that people who've gone through this journey can be those best coaches. They can give you the right direction, and they can give you they can get you wherever it is that you want to be much faster. So pay that premium. इससे कुछ खास फर्क नहीं पड़ने वाला, क्योंकि कैपिटल का अमाउंट भी बहुत स्मॉल है तो डाइल्यूशन ज़्यादा नहीं हो रही. अगर मैं 2.5 मिलियन के कैप दे रहा हूँ, मैं किसी को जो मुझे $5 लाख दे रहा है, दैट्स इंसेन अमाउंट्स ऑफ डाइल्यूशन. बट कोई $25,000 दे रहा है, श्योर दिस पर्सन डिजर्व्स.
Other investors should also agree.
No, it's a safe you can take.
They're investing at 5 million cap.
तो उनको पता है safe. This is the beauty of it as well. I sign the safe with you. I sign the same with you. Even both of you don't know if I've signed safe with each other. And everyone has to be comfortable with that. But my general policy is to be honest anyway. You don't need to hide it. You need to say, oh, it was Mudassir Sheikha and he's giving me this much time and this is the value he's adding. The truth is most VCs and investors can't really add much value. What they can do is they can help you connect with more capital. They can say, yaar, main isse connect kar deta hu, main apni portfolio company mein isse karta hu. Sure, some of them might have had built something before. They might be founders before. That's very helpful. Pakistan mein to maine nahi dekha ab tak koi bhi jo pehle founder raha ho. So, but some of them have been operators before. They have worked in, say, different kind of businesses. So if you're building something that they could really help you in, sure, give them a discount and entry valuation discount as well. And that's how you should be thinking about your VCs or investors.
So my question was, how important is it for a startup to have a traction in order to, pitch your idea to a VC or in order to raise funds? Very important.
Traction changes everything. Right? You could have the best pitch deck, you could have the best founder profile, but ultimately the only determinant of success of your business is the fact that it makes money or people use your product or people use your service, right? अगर कोई इस्तेमाल ही नहीं कर रहा आपकी सर्विस या आपके प्रोडक्ट को, तो आप बहुत अच्छे ऑफिसेस बना लें, बहुत अच्छी टीम हायर कर लें, कुछ पता नहीं आपका चलेगा प्रोडक्ट या नहीं चलेगा, राइट? बट ट्रैक्शन इज द रियल मेट्रिक इन विच यू कैन सी. ट्रैक्शन मीन्स कि इस्तेमाल हो रही है आपकी प्रोडक्ट, लाइक पीपल आर यूजिंग इट और बाइंग इट.
So just based on an idea, you can't pitch to an...
Of course you can. You can pitch based on nothing. Their founders, Silicon Valley वगैरह में तो इतना market dynamics change. 4 years ago, you could have all the traction in the world and you still won't find an investor. Today, all you need is a pitch deck, really. In Silicon Valley, if you're a successful founder if Mudassir Sheikha is starting a business, I'm using his example, but if he's starting a business, he doesn't even need a pitch deck. He just needs to say, I'm starting something and I need like $3 million, and I can assure you there will be like lines of suitors who will be willing to give him like 50, right? For because of not just goodwill, because of the fact that people believe that he'll execute. Simple as that. So again, it's just about your background. It's about what you're building. It's about your ability to execute, and there's no reason why you can't raise money before that. Sorry.
And how much traction is required?
There's no, again, you could have zero traction as well.
Initially you said that the SaaS companies are raising the most capital nowadays.
They've made the most money for VCs.
Alright. And so what about other type of companies like
Uber,
e-commerce? The situation these days, like e-commerce.
E-commerce, yeah, I also wanted to ask.
No, in India.
Because for that you have just because that they just ask what's your traction. How much have you sold? Absolutely,
because e-commerce is so competitive, you're getting attacked from everywhere. 50 e-commerce websites hain. It's a very hard business. One other thing why it's hard is because it's so expensive to acquire an e-commerce customer, and the customer is so not loyal. वो कल 20 रुपए का डिस्काउंट होगा वहाँ दूसरी जगह चला जाएगा. So the point is, e-commerce is very difficult. और उसके बाद आपकी logistics is another nightmare. In Pakistan, you don't have digital payments. I'm sorry if you have e-commerce dreams, which I'm killing, but it's true. I'm just explaining to you why this business is hard and why most people would not put their money in. And the last thing is, e-commerce needs a lot of capital.
पाकिस्तान में कोई आपके पास एग्जांपल है SaaS के रिलेटेड? जैसे Jimmy.com है.
It's not SaaS.
पहले प्लेटफॉर्म था. उन्हें जब इन्वेस्टमेंट लेने गए हैं, उनको अपना पूरा बिजनेस मॉडल चेंज करना पड़ा है इन्वेस्टर्स के लिए. एक SaaS
इन्वेस्टर्स के लिए नहीं, पैसे बनाने के लिए, really.
तो आप मेन रिकमेंडेशन ये है कि VCs के लिए SaaS बेस्ट है. लेकिन पाकिस्तान में SaaS का क्या?
You can make SaaS for the world sitting here. There's no one stopping you. देखो मैं
वर्ल्ड का तो है, वो वेल टेस्टेड है सारा कुछ. पाकिस्तान की नहीं.
आप पाकिस्तान से बैठ के दुनिया के लिए बना सकते हो ना, मैं ये कहता हूँ. हाँ, so VCs can back you.
सारे एग्जांपल्स दिए, सारा कुछ है.
Yeah.
पाकिस्तान में बैठ के पाकिस्तान के लिए SaaS की बात की.
पाकिस्तान में आप बताओ क्या? See, your objective can never be कि VC SaaS को बैक करते हैं तो मैं SaaS प्रोडक्ट बनाना शुरू कर देता हूँ. वो तो गलत हो गया.
मैं SaaS प्रोडक्ट पे काम कर रहा हूँ.
Okay.
ये नहीं कि VCs के लिए.
So सही है, sure.
मैं प्रॉब्लम सॉल्व कर रहा हूँ.
हाँ, कौन सी प्रॉब्लम सॉल्व कर रहे हैं आप?
प्रॉपर्टी रिलेटेड है, लेकिन डिफरेंट नजरिए.
ओके, आई थिंक देयर SaaS की जो एप्लीकेशन होगी पाकिस्तान में, मैं पर्सनली जो देख रहा हूँ, चीपर अकाउंटिंग सॉफ्टवेयर्स, चीपर कंप्लायंस रिलेटेड सॉफ्टवेयर्स. यू कुड हैव B2B या एंटरप्राइज लेवल SaaS. वी ट्राई टू डू SaaS विद PakSign, which is electronic signature, which is like DocuSign, on an enterprise scale, but उसकी adoption ही नहीं थी. कॉल सेंटर्स वो affinity वाले जो कर रहे हैं सारे, they have automated responses and all. SaaS is a model. SaaS is not a solution, but it's essentially it's software which you are subscribing to. And software की beauty ये है कि इसको scale करने में आपकी cost नहीं scale होती. For example, if I'm selling these chairs, if I'm selling 2 million chairs, I'm producing 2 million chairs. If I'm producing 2 million chairs, I'm buying more leather, I'm buying more, I need a bigger factory, I need more trucks to ship it. Software has no issues. You just need more cloud space. That's all. So that's why आपके margins बहुत अच्छे होते जाते हैं as your sales grow. And I'm talking about giants. They were all there. They just found a way to make calls, video calls on worse internet better. Right? This is China se hoti hai, global se hoti hai, still a market. And when pandemic hit, those guys just skyrocketed. So again, opportunity is there in literally a lot of different things. But yeah, so it's not about what VCs are looking for, it's about what you can and want to do. That's more important.
In Pakistan ke andar, when someone decides कि okay मुझे fundraise करना है, from where to start? मुझे यूँ लगता है कि जैसे there are lobbies. अगर आप if you are a part of that lobby, you can get things easier. But अगर आप नहीं हैं, आप किसी site से हैं, smaller city से हैं, then I'm not sure from where to start.
Yeah, it's partly true as well. Welcome to capitalism. Welcome to where people are generally देखें, when you're investing in people, taking a bet on a person is very hard. It's a big risk. बंदा है पाकिस्तान में historically people have not invested in people have invested in asset. आपके पास भी जो savings हैं आपने कितने लोगों को दिए हैं पैसे कि जाके business start करो. You'd rather go buy a plot or you'd rather go buy stocks because that's safer. People are riskier assets. So when you're investing in someone, you're like, yaar, how do I validate whether this person is taking me for a ride or is for real? So you try to find people who know that person. Just simple आपका society में validation का जो concept होता है. So typically you go for someone who would know that person and all. So वो एक चीज़ है, but we would go through everyone who applied. Like we did not, like हम email में बहुत सारे pitch decks आते थे. It's just that a lot of people I felt were looking for funding for the sake of funding. They did not have that thesis कि ये capital मुझे इस चीज़ के लिए चाहिए और मुझे point A से point B तक लेके जाएगा. And if someone has done AI before, he would know even more, just like you rightly said, कि तुमसे तो बिल्कुल भी नहीं होगा. But yeah.
What do you think about commission-based e-commerce projects, like the one, the Food Panda?
Like so food? Like you want to deliver food?
No, not food, but commission-based e-commerce platforms. It can be like anything, you know.
Like Daraz?
Like Daraz, yes. But Daraz is
it's much bigger, it's general. But you talk about specialized. You talk about specialized niche e-commerce. If you can execute, if you can find people to all come there, if you can have the right supplies and you can actually deliver, great. It's just that marketplaces, the customer acquisition is the tricky bit. If you can find a way where you're not spending too much on acquiring that customer, and you can you have the supply ready, you can ensure the logistics. I'm sorry, I'm just not a big. I can't get myself excited about e-commerce generally, but that's just me. But I generally think you need a lot of capital for e-commerce. You can't do it just sorry.
Okay, with regards to customizing solutions for Pakistan में एक बहुत बड़ा सेक्टर है which is agriculture. और मेरे ख्याल में agriculture में इतनी ज़्यादा issues हैं in terms of farm to fork supply chains, traceability, blah blah blah. I mean, we are 100 years behind despite being a huge agriculture base in Pakistan. Do you think there is scope in terms of startups for agriculture, and have there been any successes in India or similar?
Absolutely. I think आजकल तो जितनी भी funds मैं देख रहा हूँ, I mean, I don't know if most of them been announced, but this is the hottest space. Every VC is funding an agri-tech startup. And ताज़ा हुई है, but उसके बाद pipeline में भी काफ़ी सारी हैं. So this is absolutely, we have a big agriculture economy जिसको हम कहते हैं. There's so many inefficiencies that we need to solve for. So the opportunity is absolutely there. But yeah, whatever. और एक और भी चीज़ हुई है पाकिस्तान में recently where they have done warehousing receipts को उन्होंने digitize किया है with SECP. So your warehousing receipt becomes a security. तो अगर फ़र्ज़ करें एक farmer जाता है, जाके एक warehouse है जो उन्होंने register करके रखा हुआ है, में आके अपनी वीट रखता है, उसके अगेंस्ट उसको रसीद मिलेगी, उस रसीद के अगेंस्ट वो जाके फाइनेंसिंग ले सकता है. इट्स अ बिग गेम चेंजर. रेगुलेटरी रेल्स डाले हुए हैं बट प्रैक्टिकली उसको इन्फोर्स करना इज अ होल डिफरेंट गेम.
एक्चुअली यू नो एग्रीकल्चर में इतना ज़्यादा 360 डिग्री रेवोल्यूशन की जरूरत है कि दिस इज जस्ट अ स्मॉल कंपोनेंट व्हिच विल ब्रिंग अबाउट अ माइनर चेंज इन टर्म्स ऑफ फंडिंग एंड एवरीथिंग. लेकिन अदर एस्पेक्ट फॉर एग्जांपल crop protection, yield enhancement, then the post-harvest capability in terms of packaging, processing, traceability, farm to consumer. In पे कोई काम कर रहा है या अभी तक nobody has actually touched on these things?
People are doing different things. But one thing is very important is that creating and capturing value are two different things. So create तो कर लेंगे लोग value, educate कर देंगे farmer को कर देंगे, but उसको monetize करना, उसमें से ऐसा business model बनाना जो जिससे आप सही से पैसे बना सकते हैं, that might still be a challenge in my opinion. But lot of verticals that you're talking about, absolute opportunities, and there are actually successful companies across the world doing.
I think जितने पैसा आप agriculture में बना सकते हो ना, simple equation, farm gate price, consumer price में इतना huge gap है आपका.
Absolutely.
कि to get money out of that gap is not actually an issue, even our cost structures को निकाल दो.
Absolutely. It's just that it's educating the farmer and then educating different players in the supply chain, number one.
Yeah.
Number two, displacing players in the supply chain who are used to getting exorbitant amounts. वो challenges हैं. जो भी करेगा वो बहुत सक्सेसफुल होगा because agri आपकी पाकिस्तान की agricultural market is hundreds of billions, right? So that's in a huge market like that, if you're doing a small part, that small part could amount to a lot of money as well. So that's the thing about large markets, which by the way are pure VC plays where you're like, it's a large market, the TAM is huge, total addressable market is huge, and the potential for this startup to become huge is much more. If you go with a small market, especially niche, a segmented e-commerce is not a bad business. Yeah. You could make a lot of money, you could be successful. It may not be the right business for a VC, or it may not, because it may not have the potential to grow as fast and as much. That's the only problem.
And they probably ask that you prove yourself first, rather than like SaaS companies have this show potential, but e-commerce there are already.
If someone has proven themselves out, they're making money with high margins. They don't need your money anymore.
What do you suggest? What is the right way to approach a VC? Cold emailing, direct messaging, सीधी pitch deck भेज दो.
आप जो भी आपको इसमें सही लगे. If you can find someone who knows that person and can make a warm introduction, that's always helpful. Think of how you would invest in someone. How would you like to be approached if you were making an investment decision? Would you want कि यार एक बंदा आके मुझे बता दे कि ये बंदा सही है, पैसे लेके भागेगा नहीं तुम्हारे? That would give me some comfort. Otherwise, if it's completely out of the blue, I'm first time determining whether you're real or not, right? तो पहला तो मैं 10 मिनट सोच रहा हूँ कि यार ये बंदा मतलब है भी नहीं भी है, क्या सीन है वगैरह. तो yeah, it's trust me, the biggest difference between humans and animals is that if you offer money to a human, they'll take it. Animals won't, right? So if you are someone if you are a capital provider in a capital starved market like Pakistan, there are a lot of people reaching out. Right, so I don't blame a lot of VCs for being very skeptical because हर तरह की कॉलें हुई हैं जिसमें अजीब तरीके की भी प्रोडक्ट्स पिच हुए हैं and you're like यार ये तो मैंने अपनी ज़िंदगी के 30 मिनट ज़ाया किए हैं आज. Right, so be a little mindful in the sense that if you can get some sort of validated introduction, that will only help your case and it'll just progress your situation faster.
पाकिस्तान में अभी तक कोई प्लेटफॉर्म बन चुका है जहाँ पे VCs listed हों, कोई categorized हों?
Yeah, just go over all the news fundings that you hear. See कौन इन्वेस्ट कर रहा है. ग्लोबल वो वाले लोग इन्वेस्ट कर रहे हैं. अक्सर लोगों ने एक कोट दिया हुआ होता है. उस कोट वाले पार्टनर को देखो, जाके LinkedIn पे देखो. See what they generally invest in, whether they've invested. Ideal investor for your business is someone who has invested in a similar business somewhere else in the world. For foreign investors. And there's no reason why they wouldn't be. Pakistan is hot right now, by the way, so I think that'll last for another 8 months till hopefully.
Initial pitch deck है वो कितना detailed होना चाहिए?
Depends on your stage. Yeah, that depends on which stage you are. If you are Series B startup, Your pitch deck and your materials are very detailed. Your model is there. It's एक चीज़ का पता है कहाँ पे क्या पैसे खर्च होने हैं.
MVP पे हैं या MVP से just
MVP पे है तो आपका it should convey. एक Sequoia की वेबसाइट पे एक उनका अच्छा framework है कि you should just be talking about problem solution, whatever traction you have, whatever assumptions you made, and वो तो फिर आपकी conversation में निकल आती हैं. Pitch deck is just to assess whether I want to speak to this person or not. That's all. But उसके बाद people just ask questions.
Yeah. I'm gonna repeat the same thing. What could be a recommended legal structure for a solo founder to raise, like in a case where he gonna raise over a safe?
What do you mean? Sorry, I didn't get the question.
Just safe पे raise करना है अपना पहला round and I'm gonna be a solo founder.
सही है.
तो what's gonna be the recommended legal structure? मुझे अपनी company को किस way में incorporate करना है?
You can start with a single member company, and you can raise safes directly in Pakistan if it's a small amount. If the amount is a bit larger, you should set up a holding company abroad.
small amount means where?
Small amount means anything less than $300,000-400,000. Large amount is 500,000 above. Because holding company costs you, holding company मैं जल्दी से बता देता हूँ. Holding company costs you around, I would say, 5,000 to 6,000 USD a year. Or at least the initial. उसके बाद आपको $2,000 से $3,000 साल के लग जाते हैं.
What's the benefit?
Holding company, you set up, okay, holding company होती क्या है? You have a company outside, which company owns the company in Pakistan, and everyone owns the foreign company, right? So typically you can do a Singapore is what everyone's doing, it's easier. Yeah, or Netherlands, etc., BVI, Cayman. Benefit is that a lot of investors won't invest directly in Pakistan.
Yeah.
But all these people who've been raising money,
they've all set up holding
They've
companies.
all set up.
Otherwise it's, see,
what's the cheapest place?
Singapore is the most, you can do it quickest, yeah. Huh?
UK limited.
उसमें tax बहुत है. UK में बहुत high tax है. Singapore has very low capital gains, 0 actually.
But the net income cost you told that's like how much?
So
$6,000.
don't set it up because you set a holding company to facilitate your investors. If you're not raising a lot of money, don't set it up.
So these guys, let's talk about any of the last 3 people who raised money in Taza and all. You're saying that they raise money without having a holding company?
They have a holding company.
They have a holding company.
Almost all.
Because a lot of these VCs now, a lot of international VCs also have presence through private limited. They would send it to would have a subsidiary. So जो either private limited है, उसके beneficial owner वो holding company.
Exactly. It's in Pakistan. It's called a holdco, holding company. Abroad, founders, they own the holdco. Investors, let's give them a little tie. They own the holdco, and they put money in. That money the holdco then gives to the opco.